Thank you so much, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. And I'm really delighted to be here with you this morning with my colleague, Minister Collins, for what is our first official function and event in our new capacities as ministers in the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science. And I want to say, just about nearly 3 weeks, I think, into this new role, I'm just so enthused and energised by the can-do attitude of all of those I'm meeting. Department officials who have been working in this area for so long and are so passionate about the impact of further and higher education on lives. Those of you in Solus and in the ETBs, it certainly makes my job an awful lot easier when I meet so many enthusiastic and energetic people, and I want to help you, along with Minister Collins, champion this sector, give it the voice, the recognition, the profile and the seat at the table that, quite frankly, it deserves. I've often thought that whilst these issues are part of the Department of Education, a brilliant department, it's often hard, though, to ensure that the key issues in the sector can be brought to the surface. There's just so many other competing issues that a Department of Education needs to address day in, day out, week in, week out. To have a dedicated department of further and higher education, which can also harness the research, innovation and science functions that are coming, I think gives us a real engine for change and an engine for delivery, and I'm so excited about that prospect. And I do want to say at the outset that the name of the department is very, very important to me, because this department was originally very temporarily, called the Department of Higher Education. This is not the universities department. It is a department for universities, it is a department for learners, it is a department for people right across the spectrum of learning, and all of the possibilities. And it is a department to bring together further and higher education, to enable seamless pathways on the learning journey. So it is really important to me. It's not just a word. It is a statement of intent that further is in my title as Minister and the title of the new department as well. I'm really conscious that the last few number of weeks and months have been extraordinarily difficult for our country, extraordinarily difficult for our world. And COVID-19 has, I suppose, taken so many things that we thought were certain in life and made them all of a sudden very uncertain. And we're seeing that even in kind of newspaper discussions today. You plan to do something on such and such a date, and then the virus has something to say about that. So I know there's a lot of nervousness, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of worry and anxiety in our country at the moment. And I really think this is an opportunity for FET to come into its own, because you can provide people with an opportunity in a flexible, agile way to respond to some of the new challenges they're facing in their own life, in their own community. The challenges we're facing as individual people, but the challenges we're also facing as a country. And I hear an awful lot of talk about restarting our country. Let's restart our economy. Let's restart ourselves. Let's not do that. Let's rebuild our country. Let's rebuild our society. Let's rebuild our economy. And that's really where further education and training has a major, major role to play. I passionately believe that further education has an incredible story to tell, that it doesn't get nearly enough attention or recognition for the transformational nature of what it does. It has been the Cinderella of the Irish education system, sometimes overlooked, often undervalued, not discussed enough. I think we narrow conversations in our country about third level education much, much, much too early in life. I think when mums and dads sit around the dinner table with their sons or daughters in the CAO application, that all of a sudden narrows the conversation in a way that is not good and in a way that is not in line with best international practice and with the experience of many other European countries. So we need to broaden the conversation. We need to make sure that further education is not the uninvited guest to those family debates and discussions around dinner tables, and that further education isn't seen as something that somebody else or somebody else's child does. I did a radio interview this morning and I was asked a very good question, but it's, what is the target group for the new strategy? The target group is everybody. Further education has a role to play for everybody. It doesn't have a role to play for some sector of society over there. It has an impact on every single one of us. It can play a positive role in all our family lives, in all our community lives, and in every part of this country. So we need to change that discussion, and I'm absolutely determined that we will. It's my ambition as Minister to break down barriers, whether they're perceived barriers or actual barriers, between post-primary, further and higher education, and to ensure that the pathways to progress and to transition from one to the other are open. It may well suit somebody on their learning journey to start in a further education setting and end up in a university setting. There have to be those seamless pathways, and I really appreciate the emphasis in the strategy on simplifying the pathways. So it can be a bit of a maze at times, and I think that way of trying to simplify it is really, really welcome. So the strategy we're publishing today is ambitious. It is the vision of what we want to achieve together over the next 5 years. And I think the 6 key targets, the things that whichever ones of us are in this room in 5 years, we should measure ourselves against. Have we achieved these 6 key targets? 1, there needs to be a greater overall penetration of FET across the population of Ireland. 2, we need to see a greater share of school leavers choosing FET or apprenticeships as their first destination. 3, we need to see people moving seamlessly, even more so, between further education and training and higher education with clear transition criteria. 4, we need to see a significant and growing number of people in employment using FET to upskill. So again, it's not just something for the school leaver, that at different stages of our life we see the benefit of FET in terms of upskilling, and we see employers viewing FET as a critical enterprise resource, and I think that's more important than ever. 5, we need to see progression levels through FET increasing strongly, with pathways from core skills and community education available to all. And 6, as Andrew spoke about, we need to see a digitally transformed FET system offering a large portfolio of flexible, online and blended opportunities. And I really think that's the space people are going to expect education to be in the next number of years, and we need to get ahead of that. We need to catch up in the first instance, and then we need to get ahead of it. So at a time of great economic and societal challenge, further education has often been used as the tool to respond. And I've no doubt that those 6 building blocks will help us do so again. I've already said this morning, and I do really believe that COVID-19 has had a profound impact on society. I think it's also, though, shone a light on inequalities existing in our society. They're not new inequalities. They were there before COVID, but it's shone a light on them. And I think that's given us an opportunity to really re-energise that discussion around FET. During the last recession, further education proved itself to be so flexible in adapting to the needs of people, firstly, and the economy as well. And as we respond to the COVID challenges, further education will be what repairs, repurposes and revives both our economy and our society. And it'll do so because of its flexibility, because it can empower us to choose our own path at whatever point we're at in our life or in our education. As I get used to the many new acronyms, I used to think health was bad for this, but I think you guys might be worse. As I get used to the new acronyms of a new department, it does strike me that FE can stand for more than just further education. It must stand for everyone. And I do think that is a key message in the strategy that we're launching today. This is a strategy that proudly and ambitiously says we've made a lot of progress over the last 5 years. We have put huge effort, you have put huge effort into putting in place the infrastructure right across this country. There have been massive reforms. Now it's time to step out of the shadows and take the rightful place alongside higher education. And let's be clear, this is not a conversation about further education versus higher education. This is not a threat to higher education. This is not about doing something to the detriment of higher education. It's about working together. It's about realising that the reason all of us, whether we're in higher education or further education, get out of bed in the morning is to serve learners and to help our country through that. We have to work together to provide seamless paths and opportunities for people in education, whatever their age, whatever their stage. It has to be about equality of opportunity and equality of option as well. I think FET is central to delivering a number of key commitments in the programme for government, and I'm really excited about the role that it will play in that regard. Specifically, from an enterprise point of view, the Skills to Compete initiative will provide a strong education and training response to the labour market and economic situation that we're now faced with. I think it's encouraging that already you have an agency in Solace that is so interlinked already with the workings of the Department of Social Protection, the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, and with enterprise stakeholders as well. And I think the Skills to Compete initiative is a really good one that we need to build on further as well. I do want to acknowledge the massive reform each and every one of you in this room has led, and those watching in as well. I want to congratulate you on that. It wasn't always guaranteed to be this way. You've worked through extremely disruptive and difficult times and shown incredible leadership. And this strategy today is as a result of that hard work, outlining very, very clearly the proud role that FET can now play as well. I think we also have to be honest, though. We do face a number of challenges. Education at all levels is not yet where it needs to be in terms of equality of opportunity. It's not yet as inclusive as it needs to be. And we need to ask ourselves the difficult questions, and we need to fix them. We need to ask ourselves why, when I met the travelling community, they were telling me this week that there were more travellers in prison than in university. We need to ask ourselves why female participation in apprenticeships is still not where it needs to be. And we need to face up to what I think is one of the biggest educational and societal challenges of our generation, and that is the digital divide. Andrew spoke so well about it. I think he's right to do that, and I think Solas has a major role to play in this regard, because digital literacy now must be on par with literacy and numeracy. It is an essential survival skill. It's been recognised by the European Commission to be a survival skill since 2004, and yet 48% of people living in Ireland only have basic digital literacy skills, able to use the mobile phone perhaps. That's not going to be enough to sustain us. And when you get to percentages as large as 48, I think we have a real challenge. So I'm really looking forward to working with you in terms of driving the implementation of this strategy to ensure that it is inclusive and that it serves the diverse needs of all people, including people with disabilities, new migrants, travellers, the long-term unemployed, and ex-offenders as well. Each individual requires focused types of supports to address their particular circumstances and needs. And again, I believe this sector is so well positioned to provide those flexible responses, to reach out, to re-engage, and to address the needs of a variety of people. I want to really extend my sincere thanks to Andrew Brownlee for the leadership you provide. Leadership sets the tone for an agency, and I'm really grateful for your leadership and looking forward to it continuing. I want to thank all your team in Solas. I want to thank Sean, the chair of the board, and all of the board for your leadership and oversight as well in our initial engagements, there's a lot of blue sky thinking going on. There's a huge amount of opportunities here, and I'm looking forward to working with you in that regard. I want to thank our education and training boards. I thank Carol and all her colleagues for their work and their leadership and their lifetime commitment to this area as well. Today represents the culmination of what has been a very intensive and inclusive development process. And I know so many of you have contributed to this process, and I want to sincerely thank you. I also want to thank Maria Walsh and her team for organising today's event. It's not that easy to organise events in a COVID context, and getting everyone wearing their face masks as well. So thank you so much for what you've done. There's no shortage of ambition in this country. This is an ambitious country. This is a country that is doing well, has proudly taken its place amongst the nations of the world. It is a country that is going to rebuild and recreate post-COVID. And there is no better example than ambition and drive than Stephanie, who's here today. And I had the opportunity, we only got to meet briefly outside, but I had the opportunity to read your story, and I look forward to you sharing it with us. But your story shows how FET can open doors, how FET can change lives, how FET can be transformational, and how FET can be well interlinked on that journey through our higher education system. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories. It makes the impact much more powerful when people can hear a human story as to how it's had an impact on life. I've no doubt this strategy will ensure there's many more Stephanies right across our country from a variety of backgrounds who have huge opportunities as well. So myself and Minister Collins now will be focusing on driving implementation, on leading the communication of FET and apprenticeship as first choice pathways to build sustainable careers and full lives. We have a lot to do. We're up for doing it. We're up for working with you in partnership, and it's my great honour and privilege to formally launch this new national strategy today, to look forward to working with all of you to ensure its successful implementation, to thank you for all that you've done, and now to invite my colleague and friend, Minister Niall Collins, to address you. Gurmagat.